Uh-oh.
Up in her last two fights. Good way hitting him from that way down.
Welcome to the motherfucking relay. We're covering today's top boxing news.
Okay, we'll start with this. It's official. Germany's own up-and-comer in the minimum weight division, Sarah Bormann, will be returning to action early next month on the 5th.
In a card that will be featured on DAZN.
The last time that we saw Sarah Bormann, she moved up from minimum weight up to light flyweight to take on unified champion of Mexico, Jessica Neri Plata. And as I told you, it didn't work out. Sarah Bormann's mid-range to inside style, her pressure fighting, it wouldn't fare well against a strong puncher, a counter puncher like Jessica.
You're giving her every opening she needs to catch in between the shots.
She suffered her first professional loss. Now she's moving back down. Back down from light flyweight down to minimum weight, where she was already campaigning in a 10-round contest against Demarco for what is the IBO.
The IBO title.
Sarah Bormann, she is a talented fighter, but that fight that she just had, it was a bad style matchup for her. That's what that was. Sporting a professional record of 17 wins with 1 loss, no draws, 7 knockouts, having never been knocked out in 18 professional bouts. Dubbed Babyface. She's actually a lot older than she looks. She's 34 years old to Demarco, who's 35, 1 year older.
Why does she look so young?
Yeah, she probably drinks a lot of water, gets good sleep. Demarco, comparatively, Demarco, who she's going to be fighting, she sports a professional record of 11 wins with 6 losses, no draws, no recorded knockouts, having been knocked out 2 times in 17 professional bouts.
Just about as many fights as Sarah Bormann with less success.
Demarco was last in action in April of last year against former champion Leonela Paula Judica, April of last year, and she's returning to action in May of this one?
May, I thought you said this fight was next month.
Well, the fight's registered for May on BoxRec, though on the poster it says April. I can only deduce that the Europeans structure the date differently than we do.
What?
It's not the point. The point is whether the fight's in April, the fight's in May, it will have been a year. It will have been a year's time in between fights for Demarco when she shares the ring with Sarah Bormann, and that's not good. That's not good because Sarah Bormann is a busy fighter, a busy bee. She's going to push you.
Physically.
It's never ideal to sit out for too long and have to return to action against a capable fighter, but when that capable fighter is a busy fighter, a physical fighter that pushes you and throws punches and bunches, they're that much harder to deal with.
That's Sarah Bormann.
Sarah, who was last in action in December of last year in the Jessica Neri Plata fight that I talked about, she was busy last year. She fought 3 times last year, 2 times the year before that.
She's been fighting.
This fight, both Sarah and Tamara are coming off of losses. They're both on the bounce, they're both on the rebound, but Sarah's going to have home field advantage.
She's the house fighter.
1 year younger than Tamara Demarco and several inches taller than Tamara Demarco. Sarah Bormann has always had generous physical dimensions for a minimum weight. Very tall for that weight, long and limber as far as minimum weights go.
Edge goes to Sarah.
Sarah Bormann would be the logical choice in this fight as Tamara Demarco. She's really not the biggest puncher as far as Argentinian fighters go. She has no recorded knockouts, and to make matters worse, she has been stopped before. She has been stopped 2 times.
She was stopped by Gabriela Alanis of Argentina. She was stopped by Evelyn Bermudez of Argentina.
She could get stopped by Sarah Bormann. She could get stopped by Sarah Bormann of Germany, who likes to crowd the pocket, throw punches and bunches, and overwhelm her opponents with volume. That's her calling card.
That's their calling card, too. Evelyn Bermudez, Gabriella Alaniz, they're pressure fighters, too. They're volume punchers, too.
Sarah Bormann makes it through this fight. I could see her 2 to 3 fights from now becoming a champion.
The undisputed title fight at this weight, the undisputed title fight between Senicia Estrada and Yo Costa Valle is official. It's en route. And beyond that fight,
I think Senicia is going to win that fight. I think she's going to become undisputed champion. When she does, I figure she's going to move up in weight. She's not going to stay there. Why would she? She's going to move up in weight, vacate the title she won, at which point Sarah, so long as she stays in the winner's bracket, she can pick one up. She can be one of the next wave of fighters, next wave of champions at minimum weight, beyond the Estrada versus Valle fight.
and beyond her upcoming fight with Tamara DeMarco.
Set to go down in May, Sarah Bormann is the logical choice here. Sarah Bormann is the pick, and we'll talk more about the fight as the fight date approaches. Men's super lightweight news. Reigning IBF super lightweight champion Subriel Matias says all Devin Haney does is run all the time.
Devin Haney, who is best described as a pure boxer.
Oftentimes, fans like to describe pure boxers in that base style as runners, and even amongst boxers, like Subriel Matias, they say the same thing. All Haney does is run all the time, Matias said, exclusively to BoxingScene.com. That's all he ever does. He never comes to fight. He's only a threat at my weight if he doesn't fight me. But he looks like a man who doesn't like to fight with all that running away. With his next fight, what can I say? All I can say is that people who don't say a lot understand a lot more than the man talking a lot. I think it will be a one-sided fight, to be honest with you.
That's what we all think.
Ryan Garcia has raised serious concerns regarding his mental welfare following bizarre performances at the opening press tour and even peculiar social media rants that involve stories of pure horror. Ryan Garcia hasn't got the heart for it, Matias added. What I can tell you is that with Ryan's ability, if he had the mentality that I have and the heart that God gave me, nobody could beat him. Strange twist of fate in this funny old game, this boxing, that a fighter as limited and undisciplined, unstable as Ryan Garcia is a lot more known and a lot more popular than a more capable fighter and a more consummate professional in Subriel Matias, a reigning champion.
Ryan's more popular than he is.
Not that Ryan Garcia's quality of competition is head and shoulders above Subriel Matias' quality of competition. It isn't.
No,
but that's
no.
the point. That in spite of not having accomplished very much in the ring, Ryan is a lot more well-known than Subriel.
Boxing is not always a meritocracy like it should be.
I mean, in other sports, MLB, NBA, NFL, NHL, what you get paid, what kind of contract you're given, really is contingent upon your ability to deliver, your ability to perform, whereas Ryan makes a lot more money than Subriel does for no reason other than he's more well-known.
But he's not well known for anything he accomplished in a boxing ring. He's not well known for any fight that he had or fighter that he beat, a belt that he won. He's well known because of his social media. That's really it.
Ryan Garcia hasn't got the heart for it, Matias said. What I can tell you is with Ryan's ability, if he had the mentality that I have and the heart that God gave me, nobody could beat him on the planet. Nobody would beat Garcia if he had what I have. Nobody would ever be able to beat him if he had a better mentality. He could be great, but he doesn't believe in himself mentally.
Only in a sport of boxing could a fighter like Ryan Garcia get paid so much more than so many other fighters that are more accomplished than he is, more disciplined, more stable, more proven than he is. Only in boxing is this possible.
It's not possible in baseball, basketball, football. It's not possible in soccer, tennis, because in those sports, what you get paid is contingent upon your ability to deliver, your ability to perform at the highest levels of those sports. Whereas in this sport, Ryan's never even been a champion before, but he makes a lot more money than a lot of other people, a lot more money than Subriel Matias.
It's ridiculous when you think about it.
Which fuels the sentiment that oftentimes boxing is more of a business than it is a sport. That while every sport is a business,
Every sport that is a sport.
this sport really is more of a business.
Because look at Ryan.
And this structure, this infrastructure explains why Ryan is so unstable, unreliable. A kid who's telling himself, what do I need with a belt for when I make more money than the guys that got belts?
What do I need to do this for and do that for when I make more dough than those guys?
There's a vetting process that all fighters must go through if they wish to become elite fighters, top-level fighters. Ryan is none of those things. Even if he has the raw materials, the ingredients to perhaps become that, he's not going to do it because he doesn't have the discipline.
Devin's gonna beat him.
Now, I agree with what Matias said about Ryan. Devin's going to beat him, and in all likelihood, it's going to be one-sided. But what about what Subriel said about Devin? Is it true that he doesn't come to fight and he's always running?
No, I don't necessarily agree with that. Devin definitely is a pure boxer, an economic pure boxer that stays on the balls of his feet, managing the distance and pot-shotting from the outside. But he doesn't actually spend as much time on his bike as, say, an Arislandi Lara, a Guillermo Rigondeaux, a Jermaine Ortiz in the Teofimo Lopez fight.
Devin doesn't spend as much time on his bike as those guys. What Devin does is take a half step back, half step here, half step there, while managing the distance.
It's a half step.
To give himself room to get out his jab, throw the jab, manage the distance, and keep the guy at arm's length. I wouldn't say that Devin Haney is running. There's a glaring difference between what Devin does and what some other pure boxers do. The problem with circling away from the pocket too much, circling away and staying on the perimeter of the ring, is it allows the advancing opponent to gain momentum while he does it. It allows them to walk you down, whereas Devin
doesn't concede real estate so easily.
He'll take the half step back to get out the jab and lands the jab.
He doesn't exit the pocket completely. He might take a half step back, he might pivot.
But he doesn't concede real estate so easily as some other fighters, some other pure boxers.
I think he manages distance a lot better than most other pure boxers.
More efficiently. Now, how he would fare with Subriel Matias, a mid-range to inside pressure fighter, a volume puncher, and a strong one? Well, stylistically, Matias' style don't do Devin's style no favors.
Nope.
Those two styles are polar opposites, with the edge going to the pressure fighter, the volume puncher.
Usually, though not always, but usually, if you put a pure boxer in there with a pressure guy, the pressure guy's gonna wear them out.
The silver lining for Devin is that he's a high-level pure boxer, he's a high-level guy, and he's a young guy with plenty of time to add things to his repertoire. I mean, we're not on the eve of a Haney versus Matias fight.
We're not.
Devin is in his mid-20s. His body is still growing and acclimatizing to this weight. As he fills out and his man strength comes in, he can start to land with more authority. If the fight were next, I would favor Subriel Matias to win. In fact, if the fight were next or after next, I would favor Subriel to win. But 3 fights from now, 4 fights from now, a year, maybe a year and a half,
That could change.
Devin's next fight is Ryan. After that, his fight after that, his next fight, it could be with Teofimo.
He beats Teofimo.
So if you're thinking 1 to 2 fights down the line, what you're talking about is a year. 3 fights down the line, what you're talking about is a year and a half.
How will Devin look a year and a half from now?
How will Subriel Matias look a year and a half from now? Because he's several years older than Devin Haney. Will he start slowing down? Will we start to see kinks in the armor? Ty, look at it. Even if I'd favor Subriel to win that fight right here and right now, it's not happening right here and right now. Men's heavyweight news. UFC impresario Dana White reacted to Anthony Joshua's second-round knockout of former UFC champion Francis Ngannou by saying, if Tyson Fury had trained for the fight and didn't show up looking like he ate Tyson Fury, that's probably the way the fight would have ended too. Crossovers in boxing, that's how they end. Just like that. A very matter-of-fact answer that still sort of feels like Dana White is pulling punches. Just the other day I saw Sam Jones pulling punches.
No, I don't think that Tyson Fury trained for the fight. I don't think he took it seriously.
Then why do you say that Dana White and Sam Jones are pulling punches?
Because they keep postulating, if Tyson Fury had done this, if Tyson Fury had done that. We're not talking about a retired fighter. We're talking about a sitting champion.
You guys may as well be talking about a fantasy fight between 2 fighters that aren't fighting anymore. how much you're postulating and hypothesizing.
Why should you have to do that for a guy who still has a belt? A guy who still has his own intact?
If he's as good as you guys think he is, as good as you say he is, then why would you have to postulate this much? Dana says Fury didn't train, and Sam Jones says that Fury was so poor.
All true.
But that indictment is still on Fury. It's not on anybody else. It's Fury's job to keep himself up. It's Fury's job to take the assignment seriously. It's Fury's job to train. It just feels like people are still trying to give him the benefit of the doubt while he single-handedly brings the sport's reputation down for how good he isn't, for how disciplined he isn't. And discipline has just as much to do with elitism as natural ability and talent and athleticism and all those other things. Discipline has just as much to do with elitism as anything else. So maybe Tyson Fury isn't as elite as you think he is.
Because how long can you stay an elite fighter if you're not disciplined?
Do you realize that every time you've seen Tyson Fury on television at one of these events, like Friday's fight, do you realize that every time you've seen him on TV in the last 12 months at one of these shows, he was high out of his mind?
It's the elephant in the room.
Nobody wants to say it outright. Nobody wants to say it on DAZN or Sky or Queensbury or ESPN. Nobody wants to say it for fear of the repercussions. They won't, but I will. This guy's been coked up out of his mind every time you've seen him in the last year or so, year and a half.
On his downtime.
When he's at these shows and on his downtime, when he went to visit Joseph Parker in Australia and took a detour over to Thailand, when he was in the bleachers and he couldn't stop his nose from twitching or his mouth from moving. What do you think that is?
Did you not see that? You don't remember? Last year, when he went to Thailand?
When he took in a kickboxing match, I think it was, and he was in the rafters, he was in the bleachers, couldn't stop his nose from twitching, couldn't stop his mouth from moving. You see this, you've been seeing this. You've been seeing Tyson Fury like this for well over a year now. What do you imagine he's doing in his downtime?
From the time that he fought Derek Chisora in late 2022 to the time that he fought Francis Ngannou in late 2023, what do you imagine he was doing with the time? Clearly he wasn't in the gym.
No.
As Dana White said, he looked like a fat ass.
He didn't train, didn't take the job seriously, and we all know he didn't take the job seriously. So, most of that year, what do you think he was doing?
Why do you think his mouth keeps moving like that for? So you got a permanent case of the sniffles? What do you think that's about?
Because you don't know he has a rabid cocaine addiction and that he's likely treating his nose, still treating his nose, in between fights? You gonna pretend?
Grow up.
You know what he's doing. We all know what he's doing, and we all know what effect that can have on a fighter's performance. So when he goes in there and stinks out the joint with a Francis Ngannou, I don't think we need to pull punches on him and talk about the if this or the would've that.
If you looked the way you looked, it's because you're not actually as good as people say you are.
To me, he never was. That's not saying that Tyson Fury's not a good fighter. No, he's a good fighter. He's just not as good as people think he is. He's overrated.
Grossly overrated.
Would he have knocked out Francis Ngannou had he took the assignment more seriously? And while I think he would have did better and looked better had he took the assignment seriously, I don't know about knocking him out because Tyson Fury, more often than not, is fighting on the balls of his feet and moving around. More often than not, he's not sitting on his punches and coming forward like he did with Wilder. That performance, that seems to have been an isolated incident.
That greatly affected people's perception of Tyson Fury.
He only fought that way against Wilder. With everybody else, he's on his toes, moving around, feinting and jabbing and managing the distance.
Mitigating the exchanges. In essence, he is who he always was.
So when you're on your toes and you're not sitting on your shots, there's not as much power on them. And if he would have fought Francis Ngannou that way, if he would have fought a better version of that fight, I don't even know that would have resulted in a knockout.
Perhaps a cleaner win, but not a knockout.
They need to stop apologizing for this guy.
He's a big boy.
People need to stop apologizing for Tyson Fury. It's his job to perform. It's his job to be up to scratch. It's not their job to apologize for him when he isn't.